Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm starting to work on a new project. I haven't really mentioned it much on this channel, but one of my little pastimes is forging. I'm very much a beginner, but I've decided to start forging some small swords, different medieval weapons, basically looking at the player's handbook and seeing what weapons can I create on a miniature scale that I just think would be cool. Well, once these weapons are ready, I'm gonna need a weapons rack. So I'm gonna show you how I've started working on a proof of concept to get from a 3D model to this. I'll show you that more at the end of the video, but I wanna kind of just step you guys through what I do. So let's just jump right into it. The first thing I needed to do for this proof of concept, I didn't want to start from the beginning. I didn't want to start from scratch. I'm not a great 3D modeler, so anything I was going to create would have just been very basic. So I had an idea of what I wanted, so jumped into Google, did some searching, and what I came up with is this. What we have here is on opengameart.org, and I found a 3D Blender model of a weapons rack. All right, let's see. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger here. Then I'm going to remove myself from this video, and we'll just zoom in on it here for you so you can get an idea of what this 3D model looks like. So what I needed to do was take this 3D model and get it into a format that I could use with my laser, so I could cut it out of real wood. So took this Blender file and went ahead and I dropped it into Blender. Now, I've never used Blender before. I am not a 3D model maker, so I wanted to use the tools that I'm familiar with. Go ahead and leave your notes and comments if there are easier ways for me to get from point A to point Z that I'm going, because there's probably at least 20 steps that I could probably remove. So if you have other tips, let me know. This is how I did it using the tools I was able to. So what I did, went into Blender here and decided to export this as an STL. What this is gonna allow me to do is take it out of here, and again, everything I'm about to do could probably be done in Blender. But for this proof of concept, learning Blender is not my goal. My goal is to get it into a format that I can put it into Lightburn, which is the tool I use to send instructions to my laser to cut the wood. So, changed it into an STL, and with the STL, I'm going to use super basic 3D Builder. Once I got it into 3D Builder, you can see here, I know this tool pretty well because it's super basic, and I'm pretty basic when it comes to 3D modeling. I can print things and I can cut things with my laser, but when it comes down to design, that's not my forte. I can conceptualize what I want, but I'm not great at putting it into the Blender or into the 3D modeler. I ungrouped it and started to move it into its separate parts. Here you can see I'm just breaking off the top, break off the legs into separate pieces, got that center support piece and the base pieces there. See all my pieces here. Now what I'm gonna do is I need to take this and create a format that I can import into Lightburn. Again, I'm not 3D printing this. I need a two-dimensional representation of this that I can just cut the lines on. So I'm gonna take each piece, rotate it to a point where I can settle it and lay it flat on the base of 3D Modeler. So you can see here, I'm just dropping it. I'm using the settle feature. It's right up here. Putting each piece down. And then just relying them into basically a little bit of a more organized piece here. What I've got here now is a 2D representation of what I need to be able to 3D print. What I need to be able to do with this though now is export it into a way that I can bring it into Lightburn. If I could have outputted this into a DXF file or to an SVG file, that would have been great. And maybe I didn't see where I had an option to do that with Blender. Because I just think, Blender is not designed to create files for a laser, to the best of my knowledge. Again, if I'm wrong on that, let me know down in the comments, because I would love to learn any tricks you guys have for me. But that being said, I'm going to actually print this into a PDF file. By printing this into a PDF file, you can see that I now have my two-dimensional representation of the pieces to cut. This is still going to take some work to get into Lightburn, but this is a format that I use all the time. So we're going to print this out, and then we're going to jump into Lightburn. So the first thing I'm going to do is import the PDF that I created. Within Lightburn, you can actually take an image like this, and you can trace the image. Simple as that. This is how I started the process. It does a very basic trace of all the outside lines. I also adjusted the pieces. It's kind of a fine-tuned, fiddly process, so I'm not going to go through it in detail for you all. But what I needed was to be able to at least get an idea of where each one of these squares was. So I did play with the features until I got to that point. But once you do that, hit OK. And if you get rid of the image, you can see you're left with the outlines and my 2D cut profiles for the rack. Now, a few other things. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. So I did go through the pieces and clean them up. For example, don't want little artifacts like that laying around. You can see here the actual trace isn't perfect. It does kind of leaves little skews, little pieces like that. But it's pretty easy to go through Lightburn and actually get rid of some of these pieces. Here, I'm going to select that, get rid of that little point there. If I just clean up a few of these, then I can straighten that out a little bit. That's just a very small example of, see if I get rid of this, that pops that into line. That's just a very small example of the cleanup I did. Kind of went through all the corners just to try to get it as clean, get right angles for each of the corners, just so the laser is going to follow wherever that line goes. So if it has a squiggly in it, the laser is going to say, okay, you want a squiggly. So I try to clean that up the best I can. As I mentioned, I also did my squares. These are going to be the pieces for where the tips or the base, if it's a pole arm, of the weapon will sit to keep it from just sliding off the rack. And of course, each one of these pieces here is going to be where the weapons lie and are held. Here you have your side pieces, and this is the cross member, which some of you may be able to tell, for my purposes, looks a little bit small, so I might have to extend that. From the laser standpoint, not to get too much, but if you kind of watch right up here above me, you'll see that these are my cut layers. So I can set up, you see all these different layers at the bottom of the screen, these different colored layers. I can set up the laser to act differently to different parts of the cut. So for example, right now, all the black is set up for a line, and well, actually set up for fill. I'd want that as a line. So that means it's gonna be a line cut, as opposed to if it was a fill cut, which is what I'm gonna use for these squares. It's going to actually, just as it says, if that's a square, the laser is gonna go across and actually fill that square up. There's times when I want that, times when I don't want it. So let's start with the black. That black layer, we're gonna want it to cut. So I'm gonna want it to go much slower. And this, my power, I'm gonna want it to be quite a little bit hotter. 55% of the laser's power for this, I'm using 1/8 inch Baltic birch to cut. It cuts through it in one pass, and it doesn't burn it too much. So it kind of gives it a nice look to it. If you went too high, the wood could literally catch on fire if I was trying to do 100% power. Too low, it's gonna take multiple passes, as you can imagine. Same with speed. I put this at 20 millimeters per second. So I found that 20 millimeters per second and at about a 50 to 55% is perfect for perfect combination of speed and power, light laser intensity to cut it without burning the wood or scorching the wood. If I want to fill, I put it at about 200 meters per second. So as you can imagine, it's maybe the same power. I'll probably reduce the power down to about 40% for that. But the faster it goes, it's not giving it a chance to just sit there and burn through the wood. As an example, these pieces, all these little squares, I don't want those to burn through. So I would grab those. We're gonna assign them to a new layer. So we're gonna assign those to a blue layer. In this case, we're gonna change those to 200 speed. It's already at 40. So we'll leave that at 40, and that's going to be the perfect combination to leave little notches. I mentioned I need to make this a little bit bigger. What I will do for this, I'm gonna look at this piece here, and right up here you can see the dimensions. This right up here, I'm gonna go ahead and take that off because that will keep it at a consistent ratio. I don't necessarily want a consistent ratio. I'm just gonna make this longer. But you can see that the height on this piece here, the top piece, is 130.612. I need this, because we're just talking two dimensions, it's gonna be height and width. So in this case, it's height. I want this to be the same. So this is gonna be 130.612. And there we go. We got that the same height. So once we change this to 130.612, in theory, and really it's not a theory, it's the exact same size, but I always like to just double check here. You can see when I overlap those pieces, they match perfect. So if we look at these pieces now, I'm gonna jump back into Blender over here. You can kind of see the pieces here. Move this around. Again, I'm not great with Blender. So you've got the top piece, you've got this cross piece, base, your little notches, and your side pieces. Here's my base, here's my top piece, cross member, side pieces. So the next part that I had to incorporate into the design is, how is this going to go together? I wanted this to be kind of quick and easy to put together. A few things I'm gonna need to do. I need to put notches. First off, I need to put notches so that the legs can attach to the base and attach to the top piece. And I'm also going to need basically little holes in the legs for the cross member to fit into. This is pretty as simple as it probably sounds. I'm gonna go ahead and change to another layer because that makes it easier for us to see it. We're gonna use this square piece right here, which is gonna allow us to create small little boxes here. Now, I mentioned earlier, I'm using 1/8 inch Baltic birch as my wood. 1/8 inch is roughly 3 millimeters. So I'm gonna change this to 3 millimeters. And this is gonna basically allow me to put, not on that piece, but over on this piece. So I wanna show you guys how I do this. Grab one of these pieces. Move this over here. All right, so this now gives me an idea of what the width needs to be. I know that the thickness needs to be 3 millimeters of this piece. So we're gonna make this fit in here. So now, once I put this together, and if you visualize this in 3 dimensions, that leg piece is gonna be upright. It will fit right into this slot here, or in this case, this piece will join into it. I'm gonna need one of these red pieces for both ends of here, and here, and here. So, and that's gonna be as easy as just control paste. I'm gonna just kind of throw them down here. Now remember, this is proof of concept. A lot of this is going to be kind of finalized and tweaked after I do a few prints. So right now I'm just kind of using the old eagle eye to give me an idea about where center is going to be. If it's way off, it's going to be all cattywampus as far as nothing will line up. It'll look terrible, frankly. But you can kind of get a rough idea. These look pretty close. Both of these look all pretty close to centered. The other piece I'm going to need is we're going to need to take one of these, and I need this to be the same size as this piece. So I'll slide this over like that. There's my piece for that. And this is going to end up going over here. Going to flip this around. Now, truth be told, this is really more than anything is for looks. It will definitely add some support to it, but we're talking such a small scale. It's not necessarily something that you have to have, but I am kind of going for some authenticity here. I want it to be a nice little display rack for my future project of actually forging weapons. I can't wait for that project. I hope you guys, if you guys have not hit subscribe to our channel yet, please hit subscribe. That's going to be an exciting project. It's going to be an ongoing project. I'm going to start out with swords. My thought, and tell me what you guys want to see. My thought is, and again, because I've never done this before, and I really enjoy letting you guys kind of go with my learning experiences, I'm going to start with a sword, and I want to make maybe 5 swords. Start with my first one, and then see how they improve as we move up to the 5th one. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, hit subscribe. Back to this little piece here. What I'm going to do now is take this and cut and paste it and put it over here. I am using, as you can see, Lightburn has a grid in the background, so that certainly helps me line everything up here. At least gives me an idea, if nothing else, height-wise. And again, just eagle eye. Those look pretty centered to me. Tell me if you guys think I'm just imagining things. Anyway, so here we have it. My first design here for our weapons rack. Fortunately, I can't do anything basic. What I should do is cut this out right now so that I can see if it works, but I can't do that. I need to add some flavor to it. So what I've actually done is, and I won't show you all me going through it, I went out to Google, did some line art searches, wanted to look for something that would kind of enhance the appearance of this. So what I've found, we're going to import. First thing I want to do is get something that will go across the top of the rack. What I found for that is a little dragon piece here. So again, gonna do the same thing as I did way back at the beginning. We're gonna trace this image. I like these images because it's very easy for Lightburn to see what I want to trace. Don't have to do any tweaking at all generally with these. Get rid of that. Swing this around here. Just making this quite a bit smaller. And we just want to make this so it just fits in here. It. And there's basically it. I am going to make these a different, once again, put it on its own layer. And I mean, just show you guys again, if you look right up top here, I'm going to actually leave you guys here for a second so I can zoom in on here. As I was mentioning earlier, this actually needs to be a fill. So that's going to fill these, which basically means I'm not going to cut all the way through them. I just want them to be it's probably less than 1 millimeter depth, but something that will hold the weapons. This is the same thing. I want this to be an engraving. I don't want to cut this dragon out. So we're going to make this the same thing as the other one. I'm going to make this 200 and make this 40. So here there we'll have a nice little dragon on the top, and gonna do one other piece here. Gonna do another dragon here. Let's make this, trace this, there, that, a little bit smaller. Copy that. Over here. I'm gonna flip it because that's gonna be on the other side. All right, and there you guys go. There you guys have it. That's the basic layout. One thing we got to do, because I always forget to do this, anyone who's watched me do other things, let's go ahead and save this. Don't forget to save. And there's all your pieces. So I'm gonna laser cut these and end up with individual pieces that I will assemble. Once it's assembled, Here's what it's going to look like.